Anyways, moving on from the voice referendum to a far less divisive issue. Israel. Now, the October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas was a truly shocking and horrific event, a date that will live in infamy, the single worst tragedy inflicted on Israel and the Jewish people since the Holocaust, which, sadly, has also now spiraled out into a brutally violent war on the people of Gaza. It's such a deeply fraught and complex issue, but thankfully, there was one Australian international master of diplomacy who thought that he should go over there and help.
Former Prime Minister Scott Morrison has strapped on a flak jacket to tour one of the Israeli areas targeted by Hamas.
Australia's former Prime Minister Scott Morrison came to witness the carnage of October 7.
What the hell is ScoMo doing over there? Did he get lost on his way to Hawaii? Oh, sorry, I set off the lazy satire alarm there. But yes, what was Scott Morrison thinking? Was he hoping he could do to Hamas the exact same thing he did to the Australian-Chinese trade relationship when he was PM? One could only hope. And surveying the catastrophe, ScoMo came away with one piece of advice.
No, I don't support a ceasefire. A ceasefire would simply advantage Hamas.
And to their credit, the Albanese government knew to do the exact opposite.
In a joint statement, the Australian Prime Minister, along with his counterparts in Canada and New Zealand, called for a sustainable ceasefire too.
This is the world coming together to urge that these pauses be resumed so civilians can get the humanitarian aid they desperately need.
And wasn't it great that Justin Trudeau was finally able to even say the word ceasefire after stumbling over it a month ago?
We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
Look, this war is getting increasingly complex and fraught, and it could drag on for months the way things are going. But thankfully, Liberal Shadow Minister for Home Affairs James Paterson knows how to end it quickly.
The war would end tomorrow if Hamas released those citizens, the captives. The war would end tomorrow if the Hamas leadership gave up.
Do you really think the war would end tomorrow if they released all the hostages?
I've lost audio here, I'm sorry.
Apologies, Senator. I'll just check one more time. Have you got me there? No, I think we do have an audio problem.
Yeah, oops, the audio cut out right after he made a preposterous claim that couldn't be possibly backed up by any sane person. What odd timing. Yes, sadly, this war has been dividing Australia with increasingly horrible scenes of anti-Semitism on our streets. But thankfully, the Albanese government has a proposal to fight it.
Legislation to officially outlaw the Nazi salute will be introduced into Parliament today.
Yes, and you can just imagine how that vote's going to go in Parliament. All right, everybody in favour of banning the Nazi salute, raise your hands. Gotcha, you're all under arrest. And this war has also divided our arts organisations here in Australia.
The decision last week of 3 actors in the Sydney Theatre Company's new production of the Chekhov play The Seagull to wear the Palestinian scarf known as the keffiyeh during curtain call sparked a frenzy of condemnation from members of the Jewish community, resignations from the STC board, and withdrawal of donor support.
What? Political statements in a theatre? What were they thinking? Nobody goes to the theatre for politics. This is Australia. Aussie theatre audiences expect one thing and one thing only. ABBA songs. Now take your politics out of here. Unless it's the song Waterloo, in which case it's fine. Thankfully, with Australia being the occasionally generous nation we are, we have opened our arms up to a humanitarian intake of both Israelis and Palestinians fleeing this conflict, and isn't independent Tasmanian Senator Jackie Lambie across the politics?
And I want to know if any of them are Hamas synthesizers.
Yes, and coincidentally, Hamas Synthesizers is also the band name for Gaza's entry into Eurovision next year.